Welcome to episode 525 of the Man That Can Projects podcast. Very excited. Have an incredible guest on the other end of the screen for those who are watching along on YouTube. Hilary DeCesare, thank you so much for joining me.
Lachlan, so good. 525. I mean, can we just shout out to you, my man? That is insane. I love it.
They're really starting to get a roll on, which is awesome. I never thought when I started originally, I'd be at this many episodes, but here we are and I love it. And I'm very fortunate and grateful that I get to learn from some of the brightest minds like yourself, every week, which is something I never thought would be possible.
That's so great. And thanks for having me here.
But we just had an awesome conversation offline and there was so many things I was like, I wish we were recording this, which always happens. But for those who are tuning in now, you're about to get a good 45 minutes of wisdom, a lot of overcomings and triumphs, and also something's going to happen to me throughout the episode. I don't really understand what, but we'll see how it goes down. But Hilary, you're a CEO in Silicon Valley, and I just finished watching Super Pumped on Netflix. I'm not sure if you've seen it, which is about the Uber story, and it seems pretty hectic. What was it like as a female in that male-dominated environment, and how did you rise to the top?
Okay, that's a big. No wonder we're now on 525 because it's just like a multi-chapter. But here's what I want to say is that yes, I did. I literally grew up my beginning of my career in the Silicon Valley, and it was one of those that I actually thought I was going to be pre-med. Dad was a doctor, grandfather was a doctor, both orthopedic surgeons. I go to college and I take, a couple of my first classes, and I thought I was going to throw up when we started to dissect different things. I'm like, I don't want to see what's inside of the human body. I don't want to do that. That doesn't interest me at all. And then what was really fascinating about that, it all started because my mom had wanted to be a doctor, but my grandfather had actually said to her name was Judy, you can't take a man's spot. I will not allow for it. Right. So my mom was, truly my hero. And growing up in Los Angeles, she was always, doing things that shocked the heck out of everyone. And I watched her. And what do I mean by that? We lived in Bel Air, and there was a point where my stepdad had gotten let go from being president of this very large bank. And she went to him and said, Bill, I want to get the house painted. It really needs it. And I was around the corner coming into the room, and I heard him say, we don't have enough money for that. And it was during the stock market crash and all this. But in my mind, I am like, a 15, 16-year-old girl. And I'm hearing, we don't have enough money to paint the house. So I had grown up in a family with divorced parents. And I was leaving about a week later to go visit my dad. And all I wanted to do was get the heck out of this house because there is like massive problems going on here. And so I was gone for about 4 weeks. It was like a summer, I had to go spend time with dad and then spend time with mom and, that whole situation. But when I got back, I'm driving up the driveway and I see a ladder and a can of paint next to the ladder. And I remember I kind of in the car, I'm like, yes, I raise my hands. I'm like, woo, we are painting the house. And I'm like, that they somehow figured it out and we've got money again. And my mom said, no, Hilary, I'm painting the house. And I thought to myself, how the heck are you painting the house? You don't know how to paint the house. You've never painted a house. And then as a 15, 16-year-old girl, I thought, how embarrassing if people around see this. Like my mom's going to be outside painting. And so it took her 2 years to paint the house. Somehow we managed to, pay the mortgage. But the day she finished, imagine that, 2 years, we had to sell the house and we moved. And I remember asking my mom, what did it mean to you? Like the day you finish. And she said, it's like my Mount Everest. I had to climb up to see the view so that I knew where I was going. And it was just like, whew. So in college, and I know I'm taking a little circuitous route here, but I all of a sudden am in something that I know down deep I don't want to do. I know I'm not supposed to be following the path of somebody else. I needed to forge my own path. So I decided that the path is going to be heading to Northern California. And my dad and my stepmom were there. And my stepmom had just been diagnosed with melanoma. No, sorry, that's me. I was diagnosed with melanoma. She was diagnosed with actual uterine cancer, and she also had a awful multiple sclerosis. Like everything was coming in. So I thought, you know what, this is my time. I need to go. I need to be there. I need to help in whatever way I can. So I decided to actually get involved in a company, and the company was going through a hiring freeze. And so here I am, I get this job and they're in a hiring freeze and I can't move anywhere. I'm like literally stuck in the training group, just training and training and training every single day. I trained for 6 months when I only should have been training for like 3 weeks, but it was brilliant for me because I learned so much. I mean, the poor trainer had to keep going and saying, okay, well, I'm going to now teach you about this and that. And then a position opened up at a company called Oracle, high tech, up like just a little bit up the road. And I started in this business of high tech software sales. I was literally selling databases. I had no idea what a database was. Then as I got better and more proficient there, I started to get involved in financials and manufacturing. And manufacturing was a man's world. And this is a time where I was just, and we're talking probably, 25 years ago. This is a time where people were like, women weren't doing these types of positions. And so I remember staying late at night, and I would basically ask these consultants, hey, come into this office and explain to me, what is shop floor manufacturing? What is supply chain? What does it mean? And these diagrams. And I remember laughing as we would leave the room and the whiteboards would be filled with all this. The last second, this one guy, Bill Seagrave, thank you, Bill, would say, let's erase all this. I hate for somebody to come in and see this. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm thinking, okay, I've got it down. I have my, my papers. But I started to really realize that, we talk about growth as something that's so important. But if you want your business to grow, you have to grow. And it's a direct correlation. And it became so important for me that growth became my overarching mantra, that if I could continue to learn, if I could continue to foster, when I heard something, I would write something down, and then I would spend time, like going online and going and talking to people and asking their opinion on it and how are they seeing the world. So I felt like I was getting this education from the top of the top as I continued. But then there's always that point where you're like, okay, I want to go for a certain position. Like I want to now level myself up. I've done very well in direct sales, account management, and I wanted to go for this. And there was this time period where I was having twins. Yes. And I was out on maternity leave, and my vice president called, and I had these little, babies, and they were about 10 days old. And he calls up and says, Hilary, I got this great, announcement that I wanted to tell you directly. And I said, all right, cool. Tell me. So excited. I'm sitting here. I got my babies here. What is it? And he says, we've hired a new manager. You're going to love him. Vice president of this. Oh, you're going to think he's so great. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's really great. But who's he managing? Like what position? And he said, well, you're, right above you. He will be your manager. And I said, well, wait a second. I didn't even know that there was a position open. And he said, well, yeah, there's a position we hired, and you're going to really like him. And I said, well, who is it? And he was a peer of mine. And I said, but I actually would be the next one up. And I've got all the, the awards. I've got all the things that I was supposed to do. And why was I not considered? And there was a pause. And you've all heard about the pregnant pause. This was literally like, this is in the dictionary of pregnant pauses. I mean, I was still like pregnant with the whole thing laying there. And he says, well, you have babies now. You don't want to get involved in management. And I said, you know what? I actually do. And I'd like to be considered for the position. And I remember him like, what? What are you talking about? I said, no, actually, I am next in line. And there's no reason. If I hadn't have had babies, would I have been considered? Oh, no, backpedal. And all of a sudden he says, well, I got to go. I'll talk to you later. And so he called me back and said, we are going to interview you. You're going to be meeting with the SVP, the EVP. And I was all in. And I'm going to kind of net this out. And what ended up happening was I got the position. And yes, but here's the moral of the story is be really careful what you go for. Because I got in there, I had a group of all men. This guy who was supposed to be the new manager became my director working for me. It was not what I wanted. I was in the office every day at 7 a.m. I couldn't leave until 7 p.m. I never saw my babies. I was never feeling like, there's something that, I've coined this corporate guilt. You're guilty when you're home. You're guilty when you're working. Men have it. Women have it. We just are like, trying to like get it all to a point where you're like, when is good enough? Good enough. And so my whole journey, and I was at Oracle for almost 10 years. And finally, I was just like, you know what? It's time. Like Mom's Mount Everest, I could finally actually see over the clouds, over that last bit of that, mountaintop. And I thought, this is not me. This is not what I'm going to spend my next 10. And by the way, I was already a dinosaur being at Oracle 10 years at that point. I was like, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to do something crazy. And the president of Oracle reached out and he was going to a venture capital firm called Kleiner Perkins and says, I want you to come over and help coach and train our portfolio executives that we've invested in. And oh, by the way, I want you to do it in about 2 weeks. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to roll the dice. And I said yes. And I know a lot of people are saying right now, don't say yes, don't say yes. I have a formula for when to say yes. So I did, and it started me down this whole path of coaching, peak performance coaching, and taking people. It's funny, I have programs for women that are group courses, and I do one-on-one coaching with men.
So why the group coaching with women, but one-to-one with men?
Very interesting question. So
You've got me intrigued.
and until literally I listened to a couple of your podcasts and you were talking about connection, you were talking about being vulnerable, talking about like, how do we really, level ourselves up? And up until recently, it really has been that men really had a much a safer time talking to me one-on-one, where they could tell me, I've had triathletes and Ironmen and actors and CEOs of major companies, where they could really tell me what's happening. Like, hey, I just got fired from the board because, or I'm having this issue because. And it's only now, as I'm incorporating in some of the best parts of what we're going to talk about soon, which is the 3HQ framework, that headquarters of yourself, where you've got your head, your heart, and your highest self. It's only recently that men are starting to say, you know what? Highest self, that best version of me, I want to go for that. I want to be willing, like women are now being willing to open up and being vulnerable, and they're seeing massive traction. Men are also doing it. And men are now willing. And in one of your episodes, you talk about that I'm not, good enough. It's like, how, who am I? And I often go down to the base of what I call bugs, beliefs underground surfacing, bugs, your beliefs that hold you back. And for men, there wasn't an opportunity to have a platform to do that. And now there is. Now there are people like you having incredible shows, podcasts like this, 525 of them, where you're willing to be vulnerable. You're willing to say, hey, I love the last one where you're like, I want friends. How do you
Yeah,
find,
yeah.
how do it's like that book, Are You My Mother? And the little baby bird goes out and says, looks at all these different, like the alligator and are you my mother? Are you my mother? It's like, will you be my friend? And I get that. You moved recently 6 weeks ago to Nashville. I moved 2 years ago to Boulder, Colorado. So we go through this, will you be my friend? Will you be my friend? I really like you. Can we
It's such a weird experience doing that. And I thought it would be, I think now that I know what I know, as opposed to when I originally moved to Brisbane, which is where we were living before, I didn't know how to network and I didn't understand who I wanted to surround myself with. But now I'm more aware of what I want and who I wanted to be around. I've found it so easy to find those people and connect with them really quickly, which is what I wish everyone could just recognize, that once you get clear on stuff that we'll probably cover as well, it enables you to fast track everything else because you don't have to sort of sift through the stuff that you don't need to be doing.
And Lachlan, too many people say, you really have to find like-minded people. And I question that. In fact, I'd even push back on that because like-minded people aren't going to get you to kind of pass your comfort zone. They're not going to get you into what I call the G zone, your great zone, the growth zone. I want people to get and attract like energy people because those are the ones that are going to push you. They're going to push you into new directions, new ways of thinking, new ways of being, new identities versus same old, let me, oh yeah, I think that way too. I think that's great. But it's the energy that we're really trying. I want to match somebody. And then together, it's like fire. It's the sparks that are just like igniting.
I was listening to talk about that, where if you want to light that spark, get around people with the same energy. And I just did Tony Robbins Unleash the Power over the last 4 days. So I did that online. And I haven't done a seminar since 2019, just because I wanted to take a step back and implement all the stuff that I was learning. Because they do motivate you. And a lot of the time you hear similar frameworks, etc. And I was like, I'm not doing this until I've proved to myself that I'm implementing what I've learned. But when I did that yesterday, just being around people who wanted more from life, I'd do these 12-hour days and then I was working on my business. I'd get up early, go for a run. Like I just felt so energized. And when you were talking about the energy, then I'm like, that makes sense because I'm glad you sort of pushed back without me even having to say it. But I talk a lot about finding the right people to be around. But I also do agree that you can't just hang around people that support every idea you ever have. You need people to challenge you and you need people to raise your frequency.
Absolutely. There was I love that you just went to see Tony Robbins. I saw him about a month ago in Utah at the Silicon Summit. And it was the first time and I've been to Date with Destiny and UPW, and I just think he is incredible. Followed him for years. But what I really loved is I had an opportunity where he was the keynote. And I've never seen Tony consolidate a message. Like usually it's like this long, we get to hear him forever, like all these. This was an hour and a half. Boom, he hit it. And I'm like, yes, that was so just on point. I loved it. But there is a difference between you elevate yourself, you elevate your energy, and it's always and now what? And now what after you do that? And I remember going to, right before COVID, Oprah Winfrey had an incredible multi-day event. And I went, and at the end of the event, she gave a bracelet, an LED bracelet that lit up every once in a while, like to remind you of the event. And so first couple days, I'm like, yes. And I'm like, oh, I'm all into it. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then all of a sudden it just went dark and never lit up again. I'm like, what the heck? Like, but I thought about it. I'm like, this is what happens to people. We read things, we read books. Oh my God, that was the best book ever. And then a week later, it's like, what was the takeaway again? You go
Mm.
to a summit, you go to a seminar, you go to a conference, and you're like, best ever. And then, well, what exactly was the takeaway? And you take a great course and you're like, what was the takeaway? And that's where I think the difference lies today. Instead of the old way of doing that, you have to be, and we talked about this before we even hit the play button. My mom's big thing was, she passed away from colon cancer after 14-month struggle, and it was totally unexpected and it was just awful. But one of her big sayings was, it is what it is. So now what? Right? And I know I'm saying it is. She would say that, but it is what it is. So now what? It's like, come on. And you go to these conferences and you got to be asking yourself, you take a course. So now what? We are I finished it, but did you? So now what? And so I think it's so important. So I would ask you just went to Tony Robbins, UPW. So now what? So now what for you? With that content, with what you took away, with what you're still buzzing?
For me, I feel I'm motivated, but it just reignited certainty in myself that I'm meant to be doing what I'm doing. I think when you, especially with the move and being away from the network that I have, you sort of start doubting yourself. Can I actually make it here in America, especially? So for me, it's like, I can fucking make it, like
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And that's what it's done. So now it just reinforced that certainty. Everything that I do, the way I look after my health, the relationships that I have, and how my business is run is proof that I can do it. It's just
Mm.
going back to one thing you said earlier. When is good enough good enough? What does that actually look like now in today's environment for me? And that's what, I get clear on. So the implementation, the takeaway is like, I didn't go into this event with any, I guess normally I go into something with an intent to learn something. I got gifted a ticket from a client. So I was like, definitely I'll take that up. I haven't done one for a while.
Yeah.
And it was just a reminder of that. It's exactly what I needed in this new environment, I think.
So Lachlan, I would like every person out there to think about this. And we haven't really touched on this yet. And I want to circle this around. When you think about relaunches, and my company's name is the Relaunch Co. When you think about a relaunch, what do I really mean by that? I mean that it is either something that is happening around you. It could be your health, it could be a relationship, it could be your business that, God, it just stalled out. It's not scaling. Like you say, you're moving. That is a relaunch. And right now, never before in our lives have we had such relaunches happening on a mass scale. We've got global relaunches happening. We've got, the war, we've got the financial crises, we've got, pandemics. We've also got a tremendous amount of business relaunches that are happening. I have never before in my 23 years I've been coaching had so many people saying, I'm not really sure that this business that I've created that is either successful or I'm trying to continue to grow is really the one I want. Like, I feel like there needs to be maybe a relaunch. And I raise my hand. I'm like, hey, I'm relaunching relaunch right now. We're changing directions based on everything that's going on, based on what's happening in the world, in the environment. But then you also have people that are going through personal relaunches, right? Moves, like you. And you've got the hybrid workplace, and you've got people, I have to go back to the office, but I'm now moved. I'm trying to deal. There's so many different things. There's, relationships that are disintegrating. There's relationships that are blossoming. There are so many relaunches. And I like to think about any relaunch as it can be a positive or a negative transition. And it can lead to transformation, or you can ignore it. And we don't want to ignore these things. These are all leading you to where you're ultimately supposed to be going. And so, as I asked you, take away, you say, we got on and you were like, I'm on like a high right now, energy level high. Well, in what I shared earlier, 3HQ, the headquarters of yourself, this framework, think back. You've heard 60s, 70s, 80s IQ. How intelligent were you? You're like, what was it? There were tests, and you're this on the IQ scale. And then you got into the 90s where it was about EQ. How emotionally, are you emotionally like connected with people? And that's how you become a great leader. Well, today's world, it's not about a new normal. Let's just try to figure out how to silo those. It's about a new different. It's about taking this approach of you got to have the processes, the steps. It's super important. You got to know what you need to know from a business perspective. But then that's head based. But then there's also the heart based. And it's not just the why of why you're doing it, but it's you come out, and I'm sure you heard Tony say, this is the time we're going to love. We got to love our lives and love our business, love relationships, love, 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 love. Well, there are many years that I was not in any position to love any aspect of my life. In fact, I was in sabotage mode. I was in hate mode. I was in life sucks mode. And so to go from that point to the love, 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 it would be like Evel Knievel crossing the Grand Canyon. Like you can't do it. You'd break every bone in your body. So instead, my philosophy is let's go from that self-sabotage to like. Then we can get to love, right? And that's all part of the heart. And then when you get to the highest self, it's where you can elevate your energy. So 3HQ is all about how do you operate with the head, getting out of your thoughts, getting out of your own way. How many out there, raise your hand if you can, how many out there are in your own way? You're stopping you from success. Yes, Lachlan is raising his hand high. Yes,
guilty.
Both of them. We got to get out of our own way so that we can tap into that emotional center, the well. It's there, it's within all of us, so that we can then get to the highest self, to get to that place where we're operating, as I said, in our G zone, not our comfort zone, because our comfort zone is going to always keep you exactly where you are. Subconscious brain, and I'm a neuroscience junkie. I've been studying it for almost 10 years. I have a psychology degree. I didn't lose everything in the medical area. I still had to graduate on time. So I did become, a psychology major. But you have to remember the subconscious has two things that it is meant to do: keep you safe, keep you familiar, safe, familiar, safe, familiar, which means comfort zone. Woohoo! We want to be in the comfort zone. It's where we're very comfortable. Cozy little slippers, sit back in your easy chair, watch, whatever you're saying, football, soccer, whatever it is. That's comfort. But it's the G zone, your growth zone, your gratitude zone, your great zone. When you get off the easy chair and you go out and you're going to, you need to go to the gym and you work it and you really like do everything and you get the habits associated with peak performance, that helps you cross the chasm, cross that barrier. And so 3HQ is my framework that I teach every aspect of your business, and we 3HQ you in it. And it's brilliant. But I want to say, how do people keep up that energy level when I've crashed after events like that? I've then been disappointed. How come I'm not still up at the high level? You know, whether you were given a ticket or you bought the expensive ticket and you went for the VIP and you're like, what the hell? Like, what was it again? What did I learn? And so I really want to teach you right now the simplest way that you can use 3HQ. And you can tap into it on demand. You can use it at any time during the day, whether a relaunch is happening, you just got horrible news on, unfortunately, we're all, kind of in that mid zone now of midlife. Things are happening, maybe not exactly the way, you always hear about the law of three. Oh God, when's the next thing going to come in? When's the next shoe going to drop? When, what else is going to happen? And you're waiting in anticipation for it to happen. That will only get you more of that lower result. But how do you pop yourself, even if it's only for one meeting, even if it's only for this one show? A lot of times you don't know. People don't know what you're going through. People don't know that you are going through a divorce or you're going through a business, like your business is just, cratering right now, or you just had the worst quarter of revenue. They don't know that. But how do you bounce yourself back up? And the way you do it is a process that is what I call the tune-in process. And it's something that you can do multiple times a day. And I want to take you and your audience through it. Are you good? You ready?
Yes, I'm keen as for this. I'm very excited.
Yeah. Okay.
Should I be nervous?
You know what? I want you to be so open. You are like a perfect pupil right now because you've just come from UPW. I'm like, oh my God, can it get any better than this? Okay, 4-step process. Many of us have heard Einstein say, you can't solve a problem at the conscious level it was created. Can't solve a problem at the conscious level it was created. Well, I didn't get it. I did not understand what that meant. I thought about it in every which way, and I still couldn't figure out, like, what the hell does that mean for me? So I finally figured it out. And this is what it really means. It means that you are at an energy level. All emotions have an energy, a vibration. And when something's not going for you in the direction you want, when your business isn't where you want it, when your team isn't where you want it, when you're not living where you want to live, or you're not with the person you want to live, or your bank account isn't reflecting where you want, then energetically, you're not at a level to attract that. Because we know law of attraction, we know this from a gazillion different books, but do you know about law of resonance? Resonance is you resonate at an energetic level, you attract at that same level. That's the point here. I need to bounce you up to a higher level of energy on demand whenever you need it, whenever you're about to go into a meeting, whenever you're about to go on stage, whenever you're about to do a social media post, because you can't put something out there if you're low energy. You got to come to the table at a higher level. So step 1 is the head.
Can I just say, sorry, can I just say how grateful I am for this morning? Because every day I try to do 60 to 90 minutes of just writing, like just to get better at. And this morning, and then even just before the Tony Robbins, I've been flat, and I'm like, maybe a run will help, maybe eating will help, maybe some sunlight will help. So this is like this perfect thing that I need.
I got you. I got
Sorry to interrupt, but
I got everyone out there listening that feels the exact same way. And let me tell you, I'd even put out there 95% of the people out there are saying yes, yes, and yes. So tune in. It's a 4-step process. And the first part is step 1, where you are in your head. You're in your head. We get that. And I'm going to ask you, what is the biggest challenge that's going on in your business right now? What is the biggest challenge? We're getting clarity. That's what we're going for here in step 1. What is that biggest challenge?
Mine is the onboarding systems for one of my programs.
Okay. Onboarding systems.
Yeah.
Okay. For specifically one of your programs. Okay.
Yes.
Couple things. Challenges don't have to be negative. They can also be, what is your intention, right? So I tuned in right before I got on this show. and I tuned into, it's an intention. My challenge is I want to impact that one person that's listening. That's like, oh my God, this is what I needed to hear today. So do you see the difference there? A challenge can be, yeah, business challenge. This is what I got going on. I am onboarding my systems. They are not where they should be. I need to, have them modify, change a bit. That's step one. Step two, we're moving into the highest self. Okay, very quickly. And it's where you're going to change the channel. When you say onboarding the systems for one of your programs and you can't quite, get that straight, you're at a lower vibrational energy. If you were at a higher level, you'd have that onboarding done. Your processes would be cranking. You'd be so excited. So your energy around this needs to be elevated. So how are we going to do that? I'm going to get you to change your channel. Change your channel by tuning in. What is a song? And I use music all the time because there's scientific data around music. What is a song? You ready for this, Lachlan? That lights you
I'm
up.
ready.
When you hear it, you can't help but elevate your energy. What would that song be?
Two Strong Hearts, John Farnham.
Two Strong Hearts. Okay. So here's the key. For those that don't know the song, we're going to have a link. You're going to get to hear it. You're going to hear what his go-to song is. Download it on Spotify. All good. This is going to be great. But step two is literally, we're going to change your channel. So I want you, and right now we're on a show. There are violations if we play the song right now. I need you to hear it. And the greatest part about your subconscious, it doesn't matter if you hear it out loud or you hear it in your mind. I want you to take the song, and you're already starting to move, but move some more because you're changing the state. Move your body, move your shoulders. You're very stiff. Move your shoulders, move your feet, move your body. 20 seconds hearing the song, taking it from your head to your toes, letting it elevate you. Feel the chills. Feel you starting to change your channel. Yes, I'm seeing the smile. I'm seeing the arms. I'm seeing everything. Okay, 20 seconds. That is neuroscience based. We need it to be 20 seconds. Now we're going to go to step 3. And I'm going to have you tune in again to Two Strong Hearts. Tune in again. This time, we're going to create a mini movie in your mind. You are the star. You are the star of this movie. You're the director. You are the lead. You are everything. And I want you to see yourself. And whatever that intention, that challenge was, it's the reverse. I call it the relaunch flip. I want you to now see yourself with, my God, you are onboarding. The system is flowing. It is like you never imagined it could be this good. You're tuning in again. Two Strong Hearts. We're elevating. And now I want you to see a color. Again, neuroscience here. See a color. And you're wearing this color. You're seeing the color. Doesn't matter. What color is that?
Yellow.
You are going to intensify that yellow. 10x the yellow. 10x the emotion behind, like you've just killed it. You've just dominated this. You are there. Something that you're like, I don't know when I'm going to be able to fix this. It is done. It is in the tank, as we call it. Now, here's the best part. Now that you're in the States, Times Square, New York, billboards galore, you are going to take an internal picture with an anchoring system around this micro movie. And when I say click, you're going to open and close your eyes, and you're going to literally take an internal picture. Click. Open and close your eyes. Click. Click. 3 clicks. You have 3 images. Pick one. Pick one where you look the best. It's energized the most. You got the picture?
Yep.
Tune in again. And this is going to be the image that we keep coming back to. This is what we want. This is what we know. This is what we believe. This is done. Now we go to step 4. That was all about the heart, right? We put that emotion behind it. Now we go back to the head. And this is where we have a micro action. And right now, you're going to go back to Two Strong Hearts. You're going to play it again. And here's what you're going to do. You're going to think, what is One small micro action that you could do, not tomorrow, but today, because success loves speed. Success loves speed. So, what could you do right now when we're off this show that would lead you to that image that you took that picture to that? Yes, the onboarding system for one of your programs is like stellar. What would it be?
Map it out. I know exactly. Yeah.
Okay, map it out.
Yeah.
Did you hear that? I know exactly. This is what I'm talking about. So now imagine you start to tune in, which, by the way, I don't have to give you a certification. I don't have to get you to do this 87,000 times. You can become a master, a certified master in tune in within the first time, because now the next time you do it, you're tuning back into the same song, because that is now linked and attached to this outcome. And you will continue. And now the greatest part is every time you start to work on this project, and maybe you want to just say, you know what, I'm going to put it on my calendar 3 times today, 3 times tomorrow. What if you did it 3 times for 5 days? You've got 15 micro actions. Where would you be at the end of the month? You'd be done. This sucker be off your list, right? And this is what I'm saying. Whether it's you've got a song for being on stages, that could be your go-to song. I literally can do this within less than 60 seconds. I put it before every single new item on my calendar. And I can play it out loud on my phone, right? I can do that when I'm all by myself and I get up and I actually start dancing around. Or I might be on a Zoom. I might be on a Zoom call and I might be like, my energy is going. My energy. What am I going to do? I tune right back in. I tune right through the 4 steps. And then guess what happens? This is the phenomenon that takes place. And I'm just going to, I'm geeking out on this. I know we're running out of time.
No, you're fine.
Okay. I'm just going to say one other thing. There is an awesome study with monkeys. And the monkeys, one monkey was eating a peanut, cracking it open, and they both had probes on their head. So they were being monitored. And then the monkey put the nut into its mouth and started eating it. And guess what happened to the other monkey? It had the same areas of the brain light up, but it didn't have a nut. It didn't crack the shell. So what I'm saying is, if you want to bring a high level of energy, if you want to attract, if you want to resonate with the people that would come into your program, that would be around this onboarding, you've got to elevate yourself to that energy of what you ultimately want to bring. People that come to me and say, oh God, I'm not good at this. I hate doing that. This is like something, I do it, but think about the energy you bring to that. When you say, I hate really diving deep into my financials, I say, then guess what's happening? Your money, you are actually avoiding success. You are actually avoiding growth. And they're like, what? I'm like, let's start now with this. And the best part is that this doesn't take this you're going to start to see great results in 90 days. No, this is something that I had a gal that I was on her show, and she said, all right, I'm very vulnerable right here. I'm going to let you know that I have an event coming up. It's in 3-4 days, and I have basically 10% of it filled. I'm thinking about canceling it. I'm like, no, don't. Let's do this. And I said, but here's the thing. And just like I'm going to say to you, when you talk about mapping it out, I'm now going to be your coach and I'm going to hold you accountable. So as soon as you map it out, you can either take a picture of it and DM me and say, it's done. Because that's another level. That's a level I'm not going to have time to go into, but all of these great things in terms, you've heard of celebration, you've heard of what happens when, all of the hormones start to work. But initially, are you okay? But when you're done with this, you're going to DM me and say done?
Sure will.
Okay. Now,
The celebration pick.
Yeah, everyone out there, go back, re-listen to this. do the same thing, and then reach out to Lachlan and say, done. Reach out to me. I'm at the Relaunch Co. Instagram, done. And this is how you build this up. This is the number one peak performance habit that I teach when I start to do my one-on-ones. We start to do it every single time. Every time we get on a call, let's tune in. What are we tuning into? And we start there.
It's I want to quickly say, because I know there's going to be some blokes who are listening who find it weird to do this whole tune in process, because I know that was me 10 years ago. About 10 years ago when I first started doing self-development work, and some of the approaches I was really resisting. The moment that I lent into them and allowed myself to do them, allowed myself to feel things and just be, changed my life. Because I come from, the sporting background. I was very serious and very rigid, and it's going back to that whole energy piece. When you're really rigid and strict with your life, it's not fun. It's not exciting. People are listening to this show because they want a better life. And Hilary's just literally demonstrated what you can do. Listen to it, reach out to her to be able to go deep with that, because I know there are a lot of business owners who need that relaunch, and it might be you need to relaunch your relationship with your wife or your partner. You may need to relaunch your health. Don't sit back and wait. You don't want to be another one of these frustrating statistics of divorce, or there's plenty of bad statistics out there that we don't want to, are preventable by doing this work. So from what I just experienced, and once again, I've feel like I'm quite tuned in now. I think everyone should go back and listen to that segment, but also reach out to Hilary for more help with that.
And I would lastly say this, for those that are skeptical, I would say, do you have what you expected to have in your life at this point? If you don't, then the old way is not working. So why not try something new? What's the worst thing that can happen? Tuning in a few times a day? Like, what's the worst that can happen? You're going to get elevated. You're going to hear that song. You're going to be, I guarantee you, even like as you're driving home and you're about to, give your kids, your wife, your partner, whoever it is, like you're about to just say hi for the first time. You haven't seen them all day. It's huge. That energy is like that. You'll go in and they'll be like, what happened to you today? I mean, it's just the amount I get daily of, okay, crazy. It's like magic. I never thought this could work. And it's just a simple process in 3HQ. Head, heart, highest self. Give it a try.
Hilary, there's so much more I would have loved to have dived into. So we might have to get a 2.0 later on in the year. Oh, this year's nearly over, but next year. Where can if you ask, you'll receive. Where can everyone find you? So you did mention the Relaunch Co. on Instagram, but where else? Where are the best places to contact?
So I would love to give a free PDF on what I just talked about, right? More neuroscience included. And it's just Power. Oh my gosh, we just started it. So let me think. It's the Power Tool. I totally spaced what the name is. It's like, oh, I got it. Tune in Power Tool. TuneInPowerTool.com. That is so funny. I literally just tuned in myself. TuneInPowerTool.com. And it is brand new. So y'all will be like, give me an update, what you think about it. But it's not the tune in, it's just TuneInPowerTool.com. It takes you through. There's a video. I like a little visual as well. It gives you a lot of the specifics around what it all means to really go through each one of the steps. It gives you also some great micro actions that you could be taking if you're like, give me an idea of what I should be doing in each area of my business.
Awesome. We'll make sure that is in the show notes. So everyone, you don't have to go to your browser, just click the link and you will be good to go. But Hilary, thank you so much. I've honestly had a ball, and even our pre-chat and during this episode learned so much. And it is a privilege to be able to talk to someone with your experience and your willingness to share.
Lachlan, my pleasure. And thank you again for being so wonderful and tuning in, because I saw you completely light up.
Thank you. I'll just hit end record.